This story spans several years and only came to an end recently, but its impact is still felt deeply by many of the most important people in my life. In fact, it's something we'll probably carry with us forever. I'm sharing it now so people can truly understand how a situation that seems harmless at first can spiral completely out of control. Because of how long and complicated everything was, I'll need to tell this in parts. But let me start with the basics. My brother has always been my closest friend. He's the most sincere, warm-hearted person I know, someone people naturally gravitate toward. But despite how loved he is, he's barely dated. I think it's because he's the kind of person who gives his whole heart when he falls for someone. There's no middle ground with him, it's all or nothing. That kind of love can be beautiful, but also dangerous. The few girlfriends he's had, I got to know fairly well, even though I'm almost 8 years younger than him. Most of them were nice, regular girls. There were a few exceptions, but nothing major. Our family always hoped he'd eventually settle down with someone truly special. What we never expected was to end up trapped in a 6-year nightmare, all of us, because of one girl. For the sake of privacy, I'll call her Pam. I first met Pam when I was 11. My brother was 19, and Pam was 17, about to graduate high school. I remember being surprised when he introduced her to us as his girlfriend right away. He usually didn't talk much about his relationships, and none of us had heard her name before. But she seemed sweet and friendly. She was an honor roll student, beautiful, and had this calm, gentle energy that drew you in. I liked her immediately. That first year, Pam seemed totally normal, always cheerful, always nice to be around. She had funny stories, and we got along surprisingly well. She treated me like a younger sister, and because I was mature for my age, it was easy for us to bond. But around the middle of their second year together, little red flags started to appear. Nothing dramatic at first, just strange little things. Like whenever someone was talking to my brother, and she wasn't included, she'd find ways to insert herself, sliding closer to him, laughing louder than necessary, or calling him away mid-conversation. If someone brought up his plans for college or what he wanted to do with his life, she'd get visibly uncomfortable. Sometimes she'd even say things like, "I hope you figured it all out, because wherever you're going, I'm going too." At the time, my parents and I thought it was a bit odd, but brushed it off. We assumed she was just really in love and maybe a little clingy. We still liked her a lot, and thought she was good for him. Looking back now, I can't believe how blind we were. One night, when I was 13 and my brother was nearly 21, he came home late from a party. Our parents were already asleep, but I was still up in the living room. The moment he walked in, I could tell something was wrong. He looked upset, and as he walked into the kitchen, I saw a large, red mark on his cheek, like a welt. I asked him what had happened. "I got in a fight," he said, brushing it off. That didn't sit right with me. My brother isn't the kind of guy who gets into fights. "Over what?" I asked. He paused. "Pam," he said quietly, then went straight to his room. The next morning, he was driving me to a soccer game. I decided to push again, needing to understand what had really happened the night before. At first, he didn't respond. Then, with a hesitant shrug, he said, "Pam's kind of off." I asked what he meant, and he replied, "I don't know. She just likes to stir things up." It turns out Pam was a compulsive liar. She did it so naturally, so often, that you barely noticed until you looked back and realized the puzzle pieces didn't fit. All the wild stories she used to share, the adventures, the odd coincidences, the dramatic events, none of them felt real anymore. That night at the party, she told my brother another guy had tried to rape her. My brother, being the protective and straightforward person he is, immediately confronted the guy. But the man seemed genuinely confused and claimed he had no idea who Pam even was. Things got heated, and a fight broke out. On the drive home, Pam changed her story completely. She said my brother had misunderstood her, that it wasn't anything like what he thought. That moment of betrayal shook him, and a few weeks later he ended things. Then, out of nowhere, Pam reached out to me. She asked if I wanted to go shopping. I was only 14 at the time, she was 20. Despite the breakup, and even though my parents found it odd that an adult would want to hang out with her teenage ex's younger sister, they let me go. At first, it was a nice day. She asked how I'd been, how school was, how my family was doing, even asked about my brother. But then the tone shifted. She began opening up in ways I wasn't prepared for. She told me she'd had a sexually traumatic childhood and claimed that's why she lied, that it was a coping mechanism. Then she flipped, defensively insisting my brother had lied about everything and that he was the reason they broke up. The conversation zigzagged between friendly and disturbing. Out of the blue, she told me about a recent lesbian encounter she'd had and described it in graphic detail, then said I should try it when I was older. I was stunned. Deeply uncomfortable. She noticed, quickly apologized, and said she was just messed up because she missed my brother. That she loved him so much, and being around me brought up too many feelings. Trying to be polite, I told her I still valued her as a friend and that I understood she was going through a lot. That turned out to be a mistake. Not long after, the phone calls started. The first one came around 10 p.m., Pam sobbing, saying how lost she felt without my brother, how badly she needed him back. Then it became a nightly thing. The calls came later and later. 1 a.m., 2 a.m. I'd be dead asleep and jolted awake by her crying, begging, pleading for someone who had already moved on. I felt sorry for her. So I kept picking up. But one night, something changed. It was around 1:30 in the morning. I answered, expecting the usual sobbing. But her voice was flat. Emotionless. She said just one sentence. "Tell your brother I'm going to slit my f***ing throat tonight." Then she hung up. I froze. I had never heard anything like that in my life. No one I knew had ever threatened something like this. I panicked. I texted her over and over again, begging her not to do anything, asking if she was okay. I was terrified that somehow, because she told me, I'd be responsible if she followed through. The next day, I told my brother everything. He said he'd go to her house and check on her. A week later, Pam showed up at our house, hand in hand with my brother. They were back together. Just like that. She smiled at me like nothing had happened. Never once mentioned the calls. Never even hinted at the things she'd said. And then, just when I thought things couldn't get weirder, they escalated again. One afternoon, I walked in the door after school and found my entire family sitting quietly in the living room. My mom looked serious. "Sit down," she said. For a moment, I thought someone had died. Then she said, "Your brother told us what's been going on." I had no idea what was going on. They kept saying, "How you're feeling?" Like there was something wrong with me. I looked around confused and asked, "Feeling? What are you even talking about?" My brother gave me this look, full of pity, like he was about to break bad news gently. He said, "Pam told me she wasn't the one calling you. She said you were the one who called her. That you weren't doing well." I just stared at him. "What the actual hell?" I snapped. "That's not what happened. She called me. Every single night for 2 weeks, crying, begging to get back together with you." But he just shook his head slowly. "That's not what she said. She told us you were the one calling her. That you were the one struggling. And that she didn't know how to handle it." I felt rage start to rise in my chest, not just at her lies, but at the fact that my own family even partially believed them. Enough to sit me down like I was the problem. But I had receipts. Literal ones. I pulled out my phone and showed them everything, the texts, the call logs, even the voice messages where she sobbed my brother's name over and over. That ended the conversation real fast. That lie, at least, died right there. After that, I wanted nothing to do with Pam. At all. My brother broke up with her again, and that's when she started to spiral. She called him constantly, hundreds of times. Sent him message after message. She even showed up at our door with homemade brownies, trying to apologize and make things right. But we didn't answer. We didn't even open the door. Eventually, she disappeared. We didn't hear from her for nearly a year. Then came the last day of class before winter break during my sophomore year. I was walking out of school with my friend Liz, excited to start the holiday. That's when I saw her. Pam. Standing near the front entrance. Pacing, biting her nails, scratching her head like she was itching from the inside out. She looked awful, gaunt, pale, heavy bags under her eyes. I barely recognized her. I immediately cut across the front lawn with Liz, hoping to avoid her. But she spotted me and made a beeline in my direction, arms outstretched like we were old friends. I stopped in my tracks. The first thing out of her mouth was, "You're mad at me." I stared at her. "What are you doing here?" She gave a strange, soft laugh and said, "I just wanted to apologize for whatever your brother told you. I'm sick, Oz." She used a nickname only my brother had ever called me. That alone made my skin crawl. "Please don't talk to me anymore," I said firmly and started to walk away. She reached out and grabbed my shoulder. I yanked myself free. "I'm serious. Leave us alone. You need help, Pam." Her eyes filled with tears instantly, but I didn't wait to see them fall. I turned and walked straight to where my brother was waiting around the corner. As I got in the car, he looked in the rearview mirror. Is that Pam?" "Yeah." I said. I don't know what she's on, but something's not right. That night, around 1 a.m., we heard a knock at the front door. My dad went to check, peered through the peephole, and muttered, I think it's Pam. Don't open it. My brother said quickly. I think she's on something. My mom wanted to call the police, but my dad and brother said we should wait it out, hope she left. Then came the pounding. Louder. More frantic. She started wailing and yelling. I know you're in there, let me in. I froze. The sound of her voice didn't even sound human anymore. She's got something, my brother said, looking out his bedroom window. Like a bat or something. I peeked through the den window. What I saw chilled me. She looked like she'd walked straight out of a horror film. She was barefoot, wearing a filthy, wrinkled dress that hung crooked off her shoulders. Her hair had been hacked short and was twisted into a messy half-bun, the rest wild and tangled. She didn't look like Pam anymore. She looked like something that had become Pam. She had wiped her makeup across her face in smeared streaks, like some ghoulish creature out of a low-budget horror film. Under the porch light, she looked even thinner than she had earlier that day, all sharp edges and twitching energy. She was barefoot, stumbling across our front lawn, swinging a metal baseball bat in wide, careless arcs. She must be drunk, my mom said, reaching for the phone. I'm calling the police. No, my dad said. She's just putting on a show. She'll leave. At first, we almost believed him. It felt surreal, like we were watching some eerie live-action episode of a true crime documentary, where the unthinkable was just close enough to touch. But then she stopped moving. She went still. She stood in the middle of the lawn, staring up at our house, her head tilting side to side, up and down, like a malfunctioning doll, and then she started licking her lips, slow and deliberate. What is she on? My dad muttered. Her mood snapped like a rubber band. She bounced between eerie laughter and sudden screaming, then back to crying. My brother tried calling her phone. Then her mom's. No answer. We just sat there, listening. The sounds she made weren't human. They were guttural and strange, animalistic, like some beast that had learned how to scream. And then, silence. We all got up to check the windows. She was gone. No sound. No movement. Nothing. We stood in the stillness for a moment, trying to wrap our heads around what just happened. My dad let out a low chuckle and shook his head in disbelief. My mom looked down sadly, shaking her head too, pitying the girl for being so disturbed. But I didn't feel pity. I felt afraid. Terrified, actually. Because unlike the rest of them, I'd seen it happen. The way she unraveled. Slowly at first, like a snag in a sweater, a small lie here, an overreaction there. But over the years it escalated. From manipulative to erratic to dangerous. That night felt like rock bottom. We thought surely, this would be the end. She'd gone too far, and surely now, she'd fade away from our lives. We were wrong. So wrong. That night was only the beginning. Update 1. Obsessed ex harasses my family for years. Hello again. This is part 2 of what became a 6-year ordeal at the hands of someone who, to this day, still makes my skin crawl when I hear her name. If you've read part 1, you know the first half, how my brother's then-girlfriend Pam went from seemingly sweet and charming to someone unrecognizable. From subtle manipulation to full-blown breakdowns and threats. Part 1 covered years 1 through 4. I was between the ages of 11 and 15 when all that happened. Part 2 picks up with the start of my junior year of high school, right after that chilling winter night where Pam showed up at our house like a ghost out of a nightmare. For a while, she stayed away physically, no more surprise visits. But she was still everywhere. Every single day. She'd call and text all of us, my brother, my parents, and me. The messages flipped between eerily calm apologies and unhinged rants full of curses and threats. You never knew which version of Pam would be waiting on the other end. For months after that winter incident, I couldn't sleep unless my lights were on. I had this awful vision of her climbing over our backyard fence, peering into my bedroom window with that same wild, vacant stare I saw that night. Eventually, all 4 of us had our numbers changed and blocked her on every possible device and platform. She still had the house phone, though. And that's when she started leaving voicemails. Some of the most disturbing, bone-chilling messages I've ever heard in my life. One morning in February 2015, we had just come back from my indoor soccer game. My brother was already home and waiting for us in the kitchen. You guys need to hear this, he said, holding up his phone. She's lost it. He played the first voicemail. It was left at 12:30 a.m. the night before. Pam's voice came through, low and angry, like she was gritting her teeth as she spoke. I want the cookies back. She was serious. The ones I made for the 4th of July party. You had no right to keep them. 30 seconds of sheer delusion, over cookies from months ago. That was just the first message. Pam had left that message about the cookies, the ones she brought over for a 4th of July party years ago, saying she wanted them back because she decided we didn't deserve them anymore. We all exchanged baffled glances, amused more than anything at how absurd the request was. My mom turned to leave the room, laughing under her breath. But my brother stopped her. That's not the crazy part. He played another voicemail. This one had come in around 3 a.m. that same morning. At first, it was nothing, just that strange, empty room white noise, like when a recording is running in a place where no one is speaking. About 15 seconds of it. We all listened, confused. Then, without warning, the silence was shattered by a deep, guttural voice, unrecognizable and animalistic. Stop FING playing with me. You're going to get it. Then silence again. Just like that, the message ended. We all jumped. My stomach turned cold. I want to call the police, my mom said, her face pale now. They need to know. That girl isn't all there. Who knows what she's capable of? But my dad shook his head. If something happens physically, we'll go to the police. But these are just phone calls. My brother agreed, insisting Pam was all talk, that she wouldn't actually come back around. At the time, I wanted to believe him. But deep down, I agreed with my mom. I didn't feel safe anymore. This wasn't normal teenage drama. This wasn't even bad breakup territory anymore. This was something else, something darker. I'd never known someone who could turn on a dime like that, who could go from soft-spoken to a shrieking threat in seconds. It felt like we'd stumbled into some twisted Lifetime movie, where a girl next door type was slowly revealed to be something terrifying underneath. A person you once laughed was suddenly capable of something you couldn't predict, or stop. After that message, we disconnected the landline. The calls stopped. At least, to us. But Pam found new avenues. Some of my brother's old mutual friends, people he'd known through Pam, started telling him she'd been reaching out. She asked them constantly for his new number, sent rambling messages begging to talk. Thankfully, none of them gave in. And then, nothing. Right before summer started, she vanished. No more calls. No sightings in town. No messages. Just complete silence. That peace lasted until my brother received an email from Pam's mother. They still spoke occasionally. This time, she had something serious to share. Pam had been moved out east. Her family had enrolled her in treatment for what she gently described as a substance habit. Her mom gave us more detail than we expected, or maybe more than we wanted to know. During Pam's unraveling, the calls, the visits, the breakdowns, her mother hadn't really been in the loop. She thought Pam and my brother were still dating, still happy. She hadn't known about the breakup, or the chaos that followed. She told my brother. She's always been a little like that. A white liar. She'd make up stories that didn't make sense. She'd get caught and still blame other people, argue facts like they weren't already proven. It's like, I don't think she ever believed she was wrong, even when she was. And I don't understand it, because she wasn't raised that way. That line stuck with me. She wasn't raised that way. And yet somehow, this person, who once seemed smart, kind, and put together, had a storm hiding underneath her skin. She'd fooled us all. Maybe she even fooled herself. With her gone, life started to feel normal again. No more constant fear. No more 3 a.m. calls or peeking through the blinds. But I still checked over my shoulder sometimes. Because even with her gone, something about it didn't feel over. My brother had started dating someone new, a girl he'd known forever, the daughter of a family friend. His career was picking up too. Things felt like they were finally shifting in the right direction. Pam slowly started to fade from our conversations, our thoughts. For a while, it really seemed like she was gone. But then I started noticing a car. You know that feeling, when a car stands out just enough that you start seeing it everywhere? At first, it's just a passing thing. You catch it at a red light, or you glimpse it pulling into a grocery store lot. But once your brain marks it, you can't unsee it. It becomes a pattern. This car was like that. I saw it out of the corner of my eye so often that it started to feel like part of the background noise of my life. I didn't know the driver. Never saw a face. Just that same car, too familiar now to ignore. Then one day it clicked. I was turning into my neighborhood and saw it parked halfway down the block. That car. I actually said it out loud. What the hell is that car doing here? It sent a chill down my spine. We lived in an old, close-knit neighborhood, the kind where everyone knows who lives where, and new people moving in is practically a neighborhood event. No house had sold recently. There were no guests, no renovations, no parties. That car didn't belong. I pointed it out to my brother, who was riding with me that day. "Oh yeah," he said casually. "I've seen it a few times." Something about that made me feel worse, not better. If he noticed it too, then it wasn't just in my head. But I brushed it off. Maybe I was being paranoid. A few months passed. School got intense. I picked up more hours at work, and I let the worry slip to the back of my mind. Until it showed up again, not the car this time, but a person. It was a slow afternoon at the restaurant where I worked. I was wiping down tables when I caught sight of someone standing just outside the front doors. Couldn't see them clearly, just the edge of a figure. People often lingered between our place and the cafe next door, deciding where to eat, so I didn't think much of it. When I looked back again, they were gone. Later, I stepped outside to clean the patio, and there they were, walking away down the row of shops. I watched them for a second. Nothing unusual. Until they came back. Then again. And again. They didn't come inside. Just paced. Loitered. Circled the plaza. For almost an hour. I told myself I was overthinking it. That I was being dramatic. But something about their presence, the strange, disconnected way they moved, left me uneasy. By then, I had taken some time off school for a play I was in. It was intense. Exhausting. Opening night came and went, and I was too focused on performing to notice much of anything. Until the fourth show. That night, my family came to support me. We walked out into the parking lot after curtain call, and there it was again. That car. Parked a few rows over from my parents' car. It had no business being at my school. I knew what every cast member drove, it wasn't theirs. I stopped walking. "What does Pam drive?" I asked my brother suddenly. He looked confused. "Pam? I don't know." "Why?" "That stupid car," I muttered. "It freaks me out. It's like, everywhere we go." He didn't say anything. But a few days later, I got my answer. It was closing night. The final performance. I came out into the theater lobby to greet everyone, still riding the adrenaline rush of the show. I hugged my parents, my brother. But something was off. They were quiet. Distracted. My brother looked like he'd just come out of a fight, and my parents were forcing small talk the way people do when they don't want to tell you something. I stared at them. "What happened?" My dad hesitated. My brother looked away. Then quietly. "Pam. She was here." The color drained from my face. I hadn't realized until that moment just how much Pam still scared me. The idea that she had been watching me, in the audience, maybe even alone, filled me with a wave of dread so sharp I could hardly breathe. "Did she leave?" I asked, suddenly cold. "I don't know," my brother said. "Don't worry about it." But I did worry. I went back to the dressing room, packed up my things, and felt an overwhelming sense of violation, like someone had been standing behind me for days and I hadn't noticed until now. She'd been watching me. I had spent hours in the same building as her, without knowing she was even in the state. The thought made my skin crawl. I told my parents I wanted to leave right away, and we stepped out of the theater into the cool night air. And there she was. Pam stood near the entrance to one of the hallways, staring down at her phone. I froze. She looked different, still painfully thin, but now with makeup on again. From a distance, she almost resembled the version of Pam we used to know. But as we got closer, I could see it, that same vacant, twitchy look in her eyes. Like she wasn't really seeing us, just processing movement. There was something animalistic about her, something hollow and sharp all at once. When she glanced up and saw us, her expression shifted, a flash of anger, then something unreadable. She looked like she was about to speak. We didn't give her the chance. We just kept walking, fast and focused, pretending not to see her at all. But she followed. "Hey! Wait a minute!" she called out behind us. My brother stopped. The rest of us didn't. I heard him say firmly, "You need to stop." My mom and I got in the car while my dad hovered near the passenger door, watching. From across the lot, we could see Pam raising her voice. She was shouting at my brother now. We couldn't hear the words, but the tone was unmistakable. My dad didn't move, just stood there, waiting. After a few moments, my brother broke away from her, walking toward his car. Pam smiled, suddenly sweet, and gave him a fake wave like none of it had happened. "Bye!" she shouted, her voice sing-song and mocking. Then she turned, stomped to her car, and sped off. "That girl is still just as crazy as ever," my dad muttered, sliding into the driver's seat. "We might really need to call the police." We didn't live far from the school, but every second felt slow. I watched headlights behind us and couldn't stop my hands from shaking. I looked down at my phone, trying not to meet the shadows out the window. Then I heard myself gasp. We reached a stop sign in our neighborhood, and to the right of us, at the intersection, was her car. "Dad? That's her." Without missing a beat, he drove straight. She turned with us. "Dad, she's following us." That word hung in the air like a scream. "Call the police," my dad said calmly to my mom, who was already fumbling with her phone. His voice was steady, but I could hear the tension in it. I ducked low in the back seat, heart pounding, as we turned again, and again she followed. "I'm going to drive in a circle. We'll see if she keeps on us," my dad said. I was crying now. The realization was sinking in, hard and fast. She's been watching us. For the next several turns, my mom tried to describe our location to the 911 operator, but the streets were unlit, hard to name, hard to explain. It was pitch black. My dad and mom were arguing now, loud and frightened, each trying to stay calm and do the right thing. Then the inside of the car exploded with light. Pam had turned on her brights. Her headlights beamed into the mirrors, blinding us, the grille of her car so close it was nearly touching our bumper. My dad cursed, adjusted the mirrors to block the glare, and pressed the gas harder. We sped up. Faster. And then, silence. The lights vanished. Her engine was gone. She must have turned off, or backed away. We didn't say a word until we got home. Then we turned on every light in the house. My dad grabbed his gun and searched the backyard, the closets, the side yards. Every shadow, every corner. I stood frozen in the living room, the weight of it crashing over me. "She's been watching me. Watching us," I said, almost hysterical. For a month, maybe longer, she'd been following my brother. And me. The car sightings. The lingering stranger at work. The feeling of being observed. None of it had been in my head. She had come to my school. To my play. She'd sat in the crowd, behind my back, watching the whole time. When my family learned about everything that had happened with Pam, it seemed like she had disappeared from our lives. But soon, we realized that it was just a temporary break. The constant calls, messages, and threats continued, and we couldn't shake the feeling that she was still out there, lurking. With each passing day, her behavior became more bizarre and frightening. She would call at all hours, shifting from apologies and tearful messages to aggressive threats and accusations. One day, after we returned from an early soccer match, my brother played one of the most disturbing messages. At first, it was just static, the kind of noise you hear when a device records an empty room. Then, out of nowhere, an enraged voice screamed, "Stop messing with me! You're going to pay for this!" Before the call abruptly ended. We were all shaken. From that point, we decided to change all our phone numbers and block her on every platform. But even that didn't help. She still left messages on our landline, often with strange demands or threats. Pam had become a presence in our lives, not as a person, but as something dangerous and unpredictable that we didn't know how to deal with. Finally, after a few months, we thought it was all over. She had moved to the East Coast to seek treatment for her addictions. But her mother eventually told my brother that Pam had returned, and her mental health had only worsened. Pam had always been a liar, and her actions were becoming increasingly odd and irrational. When she resurfaced, we were ready for the worst, but we didn't expect it to be as terrifying as it was. After some time, we started noticing strange coincidences. For example, I kept seeing the same car, her car, in different places. At first, I didn't think much of it, but eventually, I realized how often I was spotting it. One day, I saw it parked in our neighborhood, and it hit me, that car didn't belong there. We lived in a small, old neighborhood, where most people had lived there for years, so new faces were rare. The appearance of that car in our area was unsettling. I pointed it out to my brother, who had noticed it too. He wasn't sure what to make of it either. Months went by, and I became busier with school and work, trying not to let my anxiety take over. But one day, at work, I saw someone standing outside the restaurant. I assumed they were just trying to decide where to eat. But then I realized they were lingering, walking back and forth for over an hour. It wasn't until the night of my show that the full realization hit me. As my family and I were leaving, I saw that car in the parking lot. It was parked several rows away from our car. I hadn't seen it at school before, and I knew it didn't belong to any of my castmates. I turned to my brother and asked, "Does Pam drive that car?" He replied, "I don't know why that stupid car is always around. It freaks me out." The worst came after the final show. When we left, I noticed Pam standing in the hallway, looking down at her phone. As we walked toward the parking lot, I felt an overwhelming sense of dread. She looked up as we got closer, and for a moment, it was like she was going to say something, but we kept walking as though we hadn't noticed her. When we reached the car, my brother stopped to talk to her. My mom and I got in the car, but my dad stayed outside. We watched them argue from a distance, but when Pam saw us leaving, she smiled in a forced way and waved goodbye to my brother. Then she stormed off to her car, the same car that had been following us for weeks. After that, things escalated even further. Pam wasn't just an occasional nuisance anymore, she was stalking us, and it became clear that she wasn't afraid of crossing boundaries. For the first time, I truly felt scared for my family's safety. What had once felt like an inconvenient ex had turned into a full-blown nightmare. We were now living in a real-life horror story, the kind you see in movies. Pam had become a personal nightmare, capable of tearing apart our lives with her obsession. Her threats were no longer empty, and we were living on edge every day, constantly afraid of what she might do next. It was terrifying in a way that I never thought a person could be, and it made me realize how serious this was. This was only halfway through the 6 years of torment, and the worst was yet to come. Pam's behavior only worsened over time, becoming more manipulative and possessive. She would often belittle my brother's past relationships, constantly comparing herself to his previous girlfriends and friends, insisting she was far more attractive than any of them. She refused to attend events that involved his family, like my birthday dinner or our aunt's funeral, because she didn't know anyone there and couldn't bear the thought of being around people she didn't have control over. She began to refer to herself as a princess, demanding to be pampered and doted on. If my brother spent time with his friends without her, she would lash out, unable to understand why he would want to be anywhere but with her. Pam was fully convinced that one day she would be a celebrity, and would marry my brother. I couldn't believe my brother, someone so intelligent, kind, and good-looking, was wasting time on a person who acted this way. But every time my brother hinted at breaking up, Pam would threaten suicide, which kept him trapped in the relationship. He was terrified she might actually hurt herself, but he didn't want to take that risk. He thought she was probably bluffing, but things escalated when he found several bottles of prescription pills in her home. When he asked her about them, she claimed they were antidepressants prescribed after her brother's death, a brother who, it later turned out, didn't even exist. Things continued to worsen. Pam became increasingly upset if my brother spent time with his family without her. My brother told me that Pam fixated her anger on me as well, even going so far as to call me names and making bizarre accusations, like claiming that my mother had an affair and that I was the result because I wasn't pretty enough. It was disturbing and unfounded, yet at the time, it felt like the least of our problems. Finally, my brother decided to end things with Pam, no matter the consequences. But that only triggered a much darker phase in our ordeal with her. Her behavior was no longer just erratic and disturbing, it was downright psychotic. In the weeks following the car incident, I found myself unable to sleep. I could sense my brother was just as uneasy, calling more often, and visiting whenever he could. The nights I did manage to sleep were filled with nightmares, terrifying visions of axe-wielding girls or ghostly figures in my room. It was exhausting. One particularly cold and windy night in early December 2015, I thought the sound of rain might help me sleep. I cracked my window just enough to let in the air, placing a piece of wood behind the window for security. I left the curtain in front but didn't fully cover the crack in the window, allowing the air to pass through. I woke from sleep that night to an eerie noise on the roof just outside my window. My room was on the second floor of our house, and the sound was unfamiliar, strange and unsettling. My heart pounded as I lay there, trying to make sense of the noise, but I was too scared to move or investigate. This was only the beginning of the final, terrifying chapter of our ordeal with Pam. The house had 3 levels, with the second floor only a few steps above the main floor. The layout was unconventional, with the bedrooms situated on the highest level, slightly lower than a typical 2-story home. My room, being on this level, was harder to access from the outside, but someone familiar with the layout of our home, particularly the roof areas over the living room and garage, could have found a way to reach it. That night, the storm was intense, and at first, I dismissed the strange noise I heard on the roof as just branches or debris moving in the wind. But then, everything changed. In the blink of an eye, my room was flooded with blinding white light. I shot up in bed, paralyzed with fear, my limbs feeling weightless. I was trying to make sense of what had just happened when another flash of light illuminated my entire room, casting everything into stark black silhouettes. Panicked, I threw the covers off, bolted down the hallway, and screamed, so loud that I startled myself. I crashed into my dad as he rushed to open his bedroom door. He grabbed me by the shoulders, frantic, and demanded to know what was happening. Through my gasping breath, I told him someone had been taking pictures of me through my window, We searched the roof and the house, but of course, we found nothing. My mom sat with me, asking the typical parent questions. Were you dreaming? Are you sure it wasn't lightning? But I knew the flashes hadn't been lightning. I had taken enough photos with my phone to recognize the distinct flash of a camera. I didn't know if they believed me then, but I was determined to show them the truth. In January of 2016, my brother adopted a puppy, a Chesapeake Bay Retriever named Ike. He was a 2-month-old with one gold eye and one green eye, and a distinct white marking on his chest that looked like an hourglass. He was the light of my brother's life, aside from his fiancée, Kara. We would finally end the nightmare a few months later, after the holidays and my brother's engagement to Kara. Kara was amazing, beautiful, and her family was one we'd known for years. Her presence lifted our spirits, and my brother was on his way to finishing the police academy. Things felt like they were finally moving forward, and for the first time in a long time, we felt untouchable by the memories of Pam. She hadn't been around for weeks, and we dared to hope that our lives were returning to normal. But just when we thought everything was finally behind us, things took a turn. One day, after my brother had let Ike out into the backyard for a few minutes by himself, Kara told us that Ike had managed to escape. She ran around the neighborhood searching for him, panicked. She called me, upset, and I joined her in looking around the block, especially in the creek area behind my brother's house. But Ike was nowhere to be found. By April 2016, new revelations began to surface that would only deepen our sense of dread and make everything fall into place. My family was still reeling from Ike's disappearance, and it felt like we were stuck in an endless cycle of misfortune. Yet, despite our attempts to carry on, the feeling that something or someone was still watching us never went away. When my dad found Ike's old collar lying in the front yard, it was like a terrible truth finally revealed itself. It wasn't just a forgotten object, it was the undeniable evidence we had been waiting for. Pam had played a role in this. The entire situation wasn't just a series of bad events, it was a carefully orchestrated campaign. We took the collar to the police, hoping this piece of physical evidence would finally get them to take us seriously. But as before, they dismissed us. They told us there was no way to prove that Pam was behind the missing dog, or that she had been taking photos of me through my window. It was infuriating. It felt like we were invisible, our lives unraveling without anyone taking action to stop it. But then, in April 2016, everything started to click. We realized that Pam wasn't just a random person causing trouble, she was actively tracking our every move. It wasn't limited to the dog or the window photos, it was everything. From what we ate to where we went, she was always there, lurking in the background, controlling and manipulating us without us even realizing it. We were beginning to understand the depth of her obsession. Pam wasn't just a stalker, she was a predator, following us everywhere, making us feel trapped in a life she had twisted around her own agenda. Every time we thought we were free from her grip, she was already planning her next move. Living in this constant state of fear felt like being trapped in a nightmare, one with no end in sight. Yet, despite everything, we refused to back down. After all that we had endured, we were determined to expose Pam for what she truly was and put an end to the terror she had brought into our lives. The situation finally began to unravel when, by sheer luck, Kara was in a small town 45 minutes away with her mother. They were in the middle of planning my 17th birthday when, for the first time in a long while, Pam's presence almost slipped our minds. We were so consumed by the upcoming celebration that we forgot about the possibility that Pam had been watching us for months, that she might have stolen and possibly even harmed my brother's puppy, and then discarded his collar in our yard to link the crime back to her. But fate had other plans. While Kara and her mother were window shopping in the town, they noticed a car parked on the street with a puppy inside. Given the warm weather, they approached the car and peeked inside. Immediately, Kara recognized the puppy. It was Ike. She knew him by his eyes, the distinctive marking on his chest, and the way he started crying when he saw her. Without hesitation, she called out his name, and the puppy responded. Kara immediately called the police and my brother, sitting on the back trunk of a nearby car, waiting for them to arrive. The police showed up just as the car's owner returned. The woman seemed uncomfortable with the police's presence and defensive when questioned. It turned out that she wasn't Pam, but her story was strange. She claimed she had bought the puppy just a few days earlier from a woman she described as shady. According to the buyer, the woman who sold the dog was eager to get rid of it, explaining that it was a gift from her boyfriend but the wrong kind of dog. The woman revealed she had met the seller at an apartment complex not far from where they were. With this information, the police dug deeper. When Kara informed them of the ongoing situation with Pam, they traced the name and found that Pam did indeed live at the same apartment complex, though she shared it with 2 roommates. The next day, the police interviewed the roommates, but Pam was nowhere to be found. They mentioned that they rarely saw her, her room was always locked, and she had no job, despite claiming she did. Her mother visited often, dropping off her rent. The roommates also revealed unsettling details about Pam's behavior. She spoke frequently about her former relationship, switching between obsessive declarations of love and violent threats toward my family, claiming we all deserved to die and would go to hell. With this information, the police obtained enough grounds to search Pam's apartment. What they uncovered was beyond anything we could have imagined. Pam's computer contained hundreds of photos, pictures of my brother, my parents, Kara, and me. There were photos of our cars, our houses, our schools, and even images of Ike. These weren't just random pictures. They were taken through our windows at night, often while we were asleep. Some were pulled from our social media accounts, even photos from our vacations, and one disturbing image of my brother's proposal to Kara. Shockingly, Pam had even digitally inserted herself into some of these photos, pretending to be a part of our lives. But the horrors didn't stop there. In her apartment, they found a series of disturbing items. She had been keeping Ike in her closet for weeks, feeding him little more than water and scraps. On her computer, they found a chilling search history, filled with violent pornography, rape fantasies, and research into weapons. The extent of Pam's obsession was truly terrifying. With all this evidence, the police finally had the grounds they needed to arrest her. Pam had been stalking my family for over 2 years. She had followed us everywhere, from our homes to our workplaces, from our schools to the places we thought were safe. Her obsession had spiraled out of control, and what we had feared for so long was now undeniable. The nightmare we had been living was finally coming to an end, but the damage had been done, and the memories of her terror would stay with us for a long time. Pam's obsessive behavior had been following us around town. She had taken photos of me from the roof outside my window, observed my brother's every movement, and even tracked his return to our house. She meticulously documented her thoughts, her observations, and most disturbingly, her plans in a journal. We won't be able to see that journal until the trial next month, but it's enough to know that she had been systematically plotting and obsessing over us. Now, the time has come for all of us, my brother, my father, me, the girl who had helped us discover Ike, several of my brother's friends, and Pam's own mother, to testify against her. The upcoming trial will be the first time we've had to face her since this nightmare began. To say I'm scared and angry would be an understatement. I'm angry that someone like her, a narcissistic, psychotic, malevolent force, managed to latch onto my brother and my family. She single-handedly stripped us of our sense of security, peace of mind, and trust. Every little noise, every unfamiliar face, every car that follows too closely still sends me into a panic. I can't help but see her again, standing in my yard, dressed strangely and staring blankly at the sky with an unsettling, vacant gaze. My life turned into a real-life horror story, not because of a haunted house or an axe-wielding murderer, but because of a deeply disturbed person with a broken mind and an obsession with something she could never have. At 17 years old, I'd been through an ordeal that most people would read about and think is a fictional thriller. My family is healing, I am healing, and we've emerged from this stronger. I hope that my story helps someone else who has gone through something similar to feel less alone. If this story has made you think of someone in your life who shows signs of being like Pam, I hope you now feel more equipped to take action and protect yourself. Don't wait until things escalate as they did for me. Be aware of the dangers of mental instability and the real threat it can pose. As the trial progresses and we uncover more details, I may update this post with additional information. I want to thank everyone who has supported me and listened to my story. Writing all of this down has been a way for me to finally find the words I couldn't express over the past 6 years. I am stronger now, and I will continue to be. And here's what I'll tell you at the very end. You watch this story to the end, it means only one thing: this video format suits you. You should subscribe to the channel to continue listening to similar stories in this format.